Hi, friends and colleagues. My name is Dr. Evka, and I'm so glad that we met at EntreMD Live, where we can have a conversation together. Since I'm a second speaker, I want to give you a sense of what you might expect from this conference. I'm a pattern person. I'm really good at figuring out patterns. So how does this apply to you? Well, listen up. You're about to hear various stories from various doctors. If you're a pattern person like me, you're going to start to notice certain patterns. The patterns go something like this. Each of us goes about our daily lives until something unexpected happens, something that changes our lives, that has such a profound impact on us to the point that we realize that we need to start businesses in order to reach our true potential. And let me tell you, my story is no exception to this pattern. As a young child, my family escaped communism in Eastern Europe to build a brand new life here in the democratic United States. We initially lived in poverty without so much as like a proper toy for me or my brother. My first doll was a bunch of sticks. But my parents always told me, work hard, study hard. We are in the United States. And we are in the land of opportunity. So that's what I did. I got into college with a full academic scholarship. And from there, I went to medical school and the family medicine residency. I thought that I would eventually have it all. I was a doctor. For me, being a doctor symbolized part of the American dream. Fast forward a few years, and now I'm attending, working 80 hours a week because I love family medicine. And I'm loving it. And then something changed. What was supposed to be a very, very joyous time of my life, because I really wanted it, was the birth of my baby, my precious, loving, strong, kind baby. And she had significant feeding difficulties. She refused the breast. She refused the bottle. I tried to feed her in any which way I could, and she would arch her back, turn away from food, and scream and scream and scream, all while dropping on the growth curve and having no luck with various medications. Feeding took forever, for almost an hour. Many, many, many times a day. There was talk of a feeding tube. There was talk of a diagnosis for which the parental handbook hadn't even been written yet. I wrote it. It's called the FPIE's handbook. All I wanted to do was to get my baby to feed. As a mom, for me, feeding equated living. My biggest worry was that if I couldn't get my baby to feed, how would my baby survive? What a terrible feeling for a mother. And all I kept thinking was, I love you so much, baby. I don't know all the reasons why you're having such difficulty with feeding, but we're certainly going to find out and improve your feeding together. I will move mountains for you. And if I'm successful in helping you, then together we're going to help others. I dropped everything. My job that I loved, my social life, the sense of who I was, the sense of the American dream, and even a chunk of my savings, as all of this figuring it out was to be expensive and it was so time consuming. I just focused on figuring out how to help my baby. I took courses, the same courses as a speech language pathologist about pediatric feeding disorders. If you can think of a type of feeding therapy, I probably tried that, some version of it, on my child. Whatever we needed, I was going to be there for my baby. In the process, I learned a thing or two. I wrote a book about food allergies that has helped over 1,000 people. I started a Facebook group to support families on their feeding journeys. My child's feeding thankfully got better, and I realized that I had something very important to add to the world of pediatric feeding disorders. I wanted to focus on this because once I hit my rock bottom, I didn't want anyone to feel as scared or alone as I once did, like ever. As my emotions regarding rock bottom became a scar, as things improved, I wanted to help others whose children had similar food allergies or feeding challenges. I started my business with high hopes. I could show up and be fearless because let me tell you, when you reach rock bottom, the lowest of low, you never experience fear in the same way. I wrote a thorough, research-based, evidence-based book that became the top-selling book on Amazon in its category, I thought that I could get my business to help with this up and running in no time. And I was wrong. I experienced failure. Warren Buffett once said that the most successful people in the world are masters of public speaking. At the beginning of 2020, in January, I went on my first podcast interview thinking, how hard could this be? I was on the podcast for an hour of scheduled time, and the podcast never aired because I filled half the time with so many filler words. I was incredibly nervous, and it showed. It wasn't for lack of knowledge. It wasn't for a lack of experience. It was just this difficulty with learning how to speak. I really wanted to help and share what I knew about food allergies and children with feeding disorders, yet the words just wouldn't come out of my mouth and I couldn't speak. What a huge problem for me. If I want to be out there and helping others, you need to speak to be able to have a successful platform. I kept asking myself, what do I do? What do I do? One day, I stumbled upon Dr. Una's podcast. In it, she described herself as one of the most introverted of introverts. Yet on her podcast, she sounded like one of the most gifted of speakers. I kept thinking, now that's my girl. If she once had such difficulty with speaking and now she's so good at it, I need to do whatever it is that she tells me to do. The next thing I know, I'm signed up for the EntreMD Business School. Dr. Una's message was simple. Practice your speaking, practice, 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 practice. Go on podcasts, do videos, make your own podcast, put yourself out there, rinse and repeat. My answer, again, because I'm fearless, is okay, I will do that. If Dr. Una says to do it, I will do it. Do videos? Check. Look at my Instagram page or my YouTube channel under Dr. Evka. If you're not sure how to get it, go on feedinghandbook.com. Do videos. Check. Look at my Instagram page and you'll find them there. Make your own podcast. Check. Listen to my Feeding Made Easy podcast. I'm on episode 5 of it. Go on a podcast. I eventually got a speaking gig, and it wasn't just for a podcast. It was also for a radio show. Dr. Carly Snyder, an MD for moms. God bless her soul. I was nervous because the last time I spoke in front of a crowd for something else, I choked. And this could be even worse. This was a radio show. At least on the podcast, you have the ability to make edits. Well, it wasn't the case here. This was live. Yet I told myself I would be fearless and I would go ahead and do that show. I looked forward to the show, but my secret hope was truly that the host would do most of the talking. And what happened? The first few words out of the host's mouth were, I'm somewhat hoarse and sick host. I'm gonna let you guest, your wonderful guest, do most of the talking today. What? The old me would have run out the room as quickly as possible, yet not the new one, the one that kept on practicing. I put myself out there. I talked about food allergies as well as children who have feeding difficulties. I spent an hour on it. And guess what? Guess what people didn't hear? They didn't hear, Some of my friends who listened to the show later said, Dr. Evka, you are speaking natural. What? Me? No way. What were they talking about? The person who couldn't speak well, but now apparently I do. You see, the new me had practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. Now I feel ready to take on the world. If you'd be interested in having me on your podcast, let me know. Hi. If you'd be interested in coming on my Feeding Made Easy podcast, let me know. And if you are nervous, I promise to do as much editing on my podcast as you would like because I get you. If you'd be interested in having me speak to your audience in any other way, I'm here, I'm ready. Just contact me. I will continue to improve. And I hope you do the same. Whatever your business is, whatever you want it to be, celebrate your strengths, but also work on your areas of improvement. And the best way to improve is to practice. In that way, those weaknesses can turn into strengths. The choice is yours. I'm asking you today, what will you do? Will you sit there ignoring your trouble spots, or will you do something about them? Because I am living proof that from that moment that I decided to work on my weaknesses, and let me tell you, it was time consuming and it was hard, I was able to overcome them. In the same way, if you encounter your rock bottom moment like I did, your lowest of low, what will you do? Will you let yourself be bigger and stronger than your darkest moments? Will you face your challenges, find inspiration, and transform them into moments where you shine?